Welcome, ladies and gamers. This is going to be a slightly different type of video. Currently, I am working on, for the main channel, a big DMC3 video that will cover everything, and just in case you are wondering, and as you may have clicked on, it will be featuring the freestyle mode since I got it recently. So today, I'd just kind of like to talk about how it feels, how it looks, if it's any good or not. Maybe that's what I put as the title if it's good. I don't know what I'm going to title this. Something Freestyle DMC3. And the Nintendo Switch is an absolute potato. Like, this thing can't run a PS2 game for some reason. It doesn't look that good. It's not necessarily on my side entirely. It's on some of the Switch's side. So if it looks a little bit bad, you'll understand why. Well, this video has some structure. It'll kind of be light and hopefully quick. So that way you kind of get the information that you need about Freestyle before you want to play it, or at least want to talk about it or understand it more. So I hope that this video will be helpful to you in some way. I forgot to add this in the video, so I'm just adding this in post. By the way, you can check out my streams on the main channel. Typically, I will be playing a lot of DMC3 on the Nintendo Switch because of this. Play a lot of other DMC games as well, typically DMC Devil May Cry or DMC5 if necessary. But yeah, that's it. Oh, and don't fear, the heavenly glow from the background doesn't mean I'm an angel. It's just that I recorded this in the daytime for once in my life. So yeah, anyway. I just wanted to mention that. Back to the video. The Gamepass example. So first off, I kind of want to start with like an analogy. That way you can better understand this. I could use Netflix, but I'll just use Gamepass for this example. Now, as you'll scroll through Gamepass, you might not know what some of this stuff is. Some of this stuff will stick out to you. Like, I don't know much about Age of Empires, so maybe I won't click on it. Everybody knows of Among Us, right? And there's this crab treasure game, and what I'm trying to essentially say is that if you're not a really deep gamer, you don't really know what a lot of this stuff is. Like, let's take example Dusk Falls. I know very little about Dusk Falls, but I know that it's a Xbox exclusive apparently, or is made with one of the Xbox studios in mind. But then when I look over here, what is Army of Two? I've literally never heard of this. And this is where I'd like to see these examples kind of come to light. Like here, exactly, you know that the Assassin's Creed series, you know Batman. But what is this game? You've never seen it before. So what I'm trying to say is that with all these, look at all this. Look at out of all these, it depends how much you understand or know something that you already have before you go looking on that. So let's tie this back into DMC3 with what I'm trying to do. Hopefully, okay? This may have detracted me a little bit too much, okay? Alright, so how does this tie back to DMC3? I've kind of shown a little bit. Well, if you've played the original, such as the original DMC3 when it came out, you know all this other stuff. You know how Gunslinger works. You know how the charges and how you need to use this for crowd control. So you know that this does that, blah, blah, blah. You know that this does Rainstorm. So you know all these things. You've probably practiced. A good example of this being Royal Guard. If you know how Royal Guard works and all the timings, then you are going to fit right into Freestyle. Now, what I'm trying to say is that out of all these weapons, if you don't know them too well, I think this will confuse the average player a lot. I mean, just look at this. You've got Trickster, Swordmaster, Royal Guard, Gunslinger, Quicksilver, Doppelganger even. Then you have all these different weapons. You got Rebellion, Cerberus, you got Agni and Rudra, you got Nevada, you've got Beowulf, which we will go over a bit over in time. And look at all these different things that you can equip. And to an average player, so what I'm trying to say is that if you do want to play the DMC3 Freestyle, I think it's actually a good idea to play the original first. Okay, now that we've discussed that out of the way, we can now get into more of the nitty-gritty stuff about what makes Freestyle different and if it's worth picking up. Not good, too good? Alright, so now that you understand that, let's talk about each of these weapons in terms of Freestyle and see what they bring. So, let's start off with the not-so-good ones. So first off, I noticed when I played this game the most, there is a certain weapon on here that tends to be almost useless compared to all the other weapons, right? Cerberus, normal, you got exactly what you need. Cerberus, great for crowd control. Agni and Rudra, pretty great as well. Beowulf, we'll get to Beowulf. Now, when it comes to Nevada, or Nevin, whatever you want to call the guitar thing. At the end of the day, this weapon just does not stand the test of time compared to all the other weapons. Number one, you're not dealing with normal combos. You have to deal with not only pulling it out, but also doing this. You also have to worry about doing like left inputs and right inputs, which all do different things. Like the right input does that. So it's all like very confusing, and it's very hard to do this and flip this out on the fly. Here's a good example. I can always count on Rebellion to do whoosh, whoosh, and then this, carry over. So I know my main stretch of attack. But with Nevin, I always seem to throw the stinger out because it's a great move in defense. And it's great for helping you out. And it's not necessarily the worst weapon I've ever seen in DMC history. I don't even think it's that close, honestly. But when it comes to Nevada, it's really hard for it to work. And Beowulf is pretty good, but we'll get to Beowulf later. And on the gun side of things, I think this one's pretty obvious. It's Artemis. Artemis sucks in this game. I mean, there is some cool stuff you can do. So first of all, Artemis has to be charged in 2 different ways, holding down the gun button, which makes sense, obviously, since all the others do that. However, Artemis also wants you to hold down another button to do a different type of thing, and that's on the style button. And 90% of the time, I guarantee you people in this audience or people watching this video have the style button either on the B button, the Y button, or the X button. It's on the face buttons, which means charging this is super annoying, and it's hard to even come across to do stuff like this and without hitting other buttons in the way. So it's kind of just a huge waste of time. And the thing is that Ebony and Ivory charge way faster. Coyote charges way faster as well. So Spiral is obviously good for throwing out in a quick succession. And then obviously Kalina Ann just does a lot of damage just altogether. But Artemis, not good. I know there's some other cool stuff you can do with it. There's another move you can do where he like shoots it up into the air. Couldn't do it right now. But anyway, yeah, it's not that good of a gun compared to all the others. So now that we've talked about the ones that kind of suck, that don't feel right, like Nevin and Artemis, kind of feeling both cumbersome, while a cool idea at first, they're really hard to throw out in the middle of a combo. So let's talk about the best weapons in this game, by far. Now that you're in Freestyle, you'll notice that you have a lot of cool advantages to your existence, and choosing which weapon works for which is pretty good. Now, you see that I've equipped Beowulf for a very clear reason, and that being, Beowulf is kind of, like, disgustingly overpowered in this game. Like, the weapon was already pretty good in the original, but with Freestyle and you being able to use all the other crowd control weapons that you need, such as Cerberus, where you know you can rely on this, switching over to Beowulf can do just some rad damage. Not only that, but the real impact here, this thing is insane. I mean, it's hard to pull off, but when you pull it off, not only do you get a triple S, but it does an insane amount of damage. Beowulf, easily one of the best weapons in this game. It's not even close. Like, it is the best, period. So, it not only helps with that, but that too, and the key thing that I want to mention before moving on, is the reason why this thing is so good. If I had to pick a specific move that makes it so good, it's the dive kick. 100%. Why? Because 90% of the time you are going to be in a weird situation where you're in the air, and the thing is that only other weapons in Dante's kit don't exactly give you a lot of mobility. Like Rebellion, that just does a slash. Cerberus, that just does another attack. Agni and Ruja, again, another attack. Nevin is the weird one, but even then, it still just has this. But Beowulf, on the other hand, having this dive makes it super unique and super useful. So, let's talk about the best gun in this game. Or the best guns, I should say. Because Ebony and Ivory are disgusting. I know that people may not like Gunslinger that much, but DMC3's Gunslinger is literally a completely different breed. Ebony and Ivory are always good to throw out in Freestyle just because not only how fast they charge, but the amount of damage that they do as well. That too, and having two sometime, being able to do this all at once is extremely good. It helps you control the environment. Honestly, it's so good that honestly I barely use some of the weapons sometimes when I'm not thinking. When I get into a comfortable mode, I'll just kind of shoot out Ebony and Ivory because I know that they're super useful and always will be. And obviously the Rainstorm is pretty good too. But, you know, it's same thing with Beowulf, disgustingly overpowered, and the same thing, if it wasn't the original, it certainly is in Freestyle. The styles. Alright, so let's get to kind of the main event and why a lot of you may have clicked on this video or have taken curiosity to this edition of the game. Styles. So let me kind of explain why styles work differently in the original game and versus how they feel in Freestyle. So let's start off with something simple. Gunslinger, right? Gunslinger, when you equipped in the original game, you knew that you had to stay at a distance. Unless you had like a weird setup like Kalina Ann or whatever, or you may have had Spiral or something. At the end of the day, you want to keep a distance away from your opponents. You want to make sure that you have crowd control. Like I said, Ebony and Ivory are super good with this and help you kind of deal with this. Shotgun, you can obviously do stuff like that as well and go in, but generally you want to be staying at a range. That's when Gunslinger's at its best. So what's the opposite of this style? Royal Guard, of course. Because Royal Guard, the thing about Royal Guard is that you need to always be in the enemy's face. Because that's how you get the most use out of a Royal Guard. You can get the Royal Release that way. You can do this. It's not that good of a move. But being able to block everything means that you have to stay in the front of the line to get the most out of it. If you're playing at range, then honestly, I don't think you're playing Royal Guard right. So let's take another example. Trickster. Trickster, you always want to be extremely careful where you are moving. So obviously, if you want to try and attack an enemy, what you might do is teleport to them, attack, hit here, and then cower it away. And the triple dash makes this even better. So now you basically get to control the rules of the engagement. However, this does mean that you have almost no damage in this style, because at least Gunslinger does damage. Actually, all of the styles do more damage, maybe except for Quicksilver, than this Trickster does. And that's kind of saying a lot. So that means that you're going to be very careful about how you want to engage the enemy. The opposite of this would be Swordmaster. Swordmaster, you not only need to be in the face of the enemy, but you need to be attacking 24/7. That's where this this style really shines, is attacking so much and then making the most out of it. So with all that being said, how does it feel? Well, it feels like you take all of this stuff, the range of Gunslinger, the approach to the enemies with Trickster, the abilities and damage of Swordmaster, and the amount of careful defense with Royal Guard, and you end up with a Dante that is kind of disgusting. Like, you end up with a almost completely different feeling game, because just how different it feels to switch over to all these things at once. Now, instead of needing to be careful with Gunslinger, you can just boom, 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 boom. Okay, back to Trickster. Or you can do, you know, right? And then get back out. You can do this, and you don't have to fear any consequences, basically. Because when you know all this stuff, when you already know the weapons and if you played a lot in the original, it really makes a difference. And you'll kind of feel that when you're playing the game, because of just how many opening avenues this does for you. So yeah, it feels extremely different because of this, because of all the control that you have over Dante more than any other time before. So when I mentioned it kind of breaks the game, there are mostly two different ways it breaks the game. So number one, I can't show it on here because I'm not attacking any enemies, but style meter goes way up when you are in Freestyle. Because the thing is that with the original game, having one style, two guns, and two devil arms, I should say, like, your style is not going to be going up that high that often, right? It's usually like doing, you know, it's usually doing stuff like this where you get all the enemies clumped together that you reach a triple S. But the thing is that when you have so many weapons and you can just throw out the 1, 2, charge again, dive kick, and do that kind of combo, you've already gotten like an A or like a high A at that point. Which means that you have some disgusting abilities in terms of the amount of style that you can get in this game. Like I said, getting style is so I think it's like I don't know if I should say this, but this might be one of the easier DMC games to get heavy style with freestyle, because there's simply so much that you have at your options. Like as long as you're making good on gunslinger or royal releasing every now and again, or blocking, you can get your style up extremely quickly, which is very different from the original game. So another example of a way that this completely breaks the game is boss fights. I obviously can't show that to you either right now, but let's just take Cerberus for example. In the original game, you either had Swordmaster to kind of deal with the extra damage, or maybe you went with Gunslinger, or maybe Trickster just to get away. When you have all those things together, yeah, Cerberus is piss easy, and that goes for a lot of different bosses as well. When you have just so many weapons on hand, bosses can feel extremely, almost one note, because with all the abilities that you have, being able to do so much is more than the game can actually calculate, and the boss kind of struggles at times to keep up. And because of that, bosses feel easier. So let's take Cerberus for example. Let's say he puts himself in ice again. Well, okay, Trickster, let me get over in the corner. Gunslinger, and now let's just shoot it away. And then once you shoot it, boom, back to Swordmaster, and then do this over and over again, because this move is disgustingly overpowered, right? And then you win bosses so much easier now. Like 90% of the time, I'd say that the only way you lose bosses is if there's some kind of bullshit involved. And if you've played some of the bosses in this game, I think you know what I mean by that. However, this doesn't break one element of the game, that being the enemies. The enemies in this game suck, and in Freestyle, they still suck. Nothing is really changed or much better in this version, so I'll get back to maybe the enemies later on, but yeah, it doesn't change the fact that the enemies in this game are still super annoying. Quicksilver and Doppelganger. Okay, so let's get to the other two styles, the one that I haven't been talking about so far. So, if you click Swordmaster 2 times, not like 1 and then 2, you have to double tap. And then when you do that, then you get access to Quicksilver. And Quicksilver, super good, I gotta say. But there are some drawbacks to these two styles. And that being is that it takes up DT. Now, at your first playthrough, or maybe your DMD playthroughs, this might not, this is actually a bit of a big deal for you, but when you're trying to SS the game and you just don't want to take damage in general, this really isn't much of a problem. In fact, it's actually really useful in trying to S-rank certain missions. So if you're like a person, ooh, I want to see all the S's in a row, then I highly recommend trying out Quicksilver or Doppelganger, because they are perfect for this. Because like I said, you won't need your DT because your DT is supposed to heal you. But if you're using one of these second styles, then like I said, it doesn't matter what the DT bar means. You don't really need Devil Trigger for that. And this is where, like I said, Quicksilver and Doppelganger shine. However, there is a drawback. Only one of these two is really good, and that would be Quicksilver. I love Quicksilver in this game. I think it's super good. There is one drawback, but I'll get to that in a second. Being able to just stop time is extremely useful. It is just disgustingly overpowered, because you're able to stop time and then wail on them with 5 weapons and 5 guns, which, yeah, is as like dangerous as you think. So being able to do this and throw this out in the middle of the combo is really good. However, Doppelganger is one that I haven't used often. I know that there's some good stuff to Doppelganger, but it's a bit cumbersome to use. At the end of the day, stopping time will always be better than, you know, just double the damage sometimes. So if you want to play more careful, I suggest Quicksilver. Maybe I'll love Doppelganger a bit more when I play like 10 to 20 more hours of this thing, and then I'll make a more interesting like take on it. But other than that, Quicksilver's good. Now, we do have to talk about one thing that is really, really bad about these two styles that I do not understand why they made this decision. So, once you click Quicksilver or Doppelganger, you'll notice something. So when you, I can't show you because I have no DT bar, but when you have Quicksilver equipped and you use it, and you're like, okay, now let me just, you know, hit a real impact while using Quicksilver. Nah, buddy. So apparently, for some reason in this mode, you can use Quicksilver, but as soon as you switch to another style, like any other style in this game, it will immediately turn off. And the same thing can be said with Doppelganger. And I think this is just a huge letdown. I don't know why they did this, especially when they want to open up combos, and that's like the whole point this edition exists. But, oh well. And it is what it is. It's still better than before, I guess. Lightning round. Alrighty, if you've made it this far into the video, I assume that you're extremely interested. So let's lightning round and go through 3 main things that I just want to kind of get off my chest. So first of all, air combos in this game, while you may think that they are super opened up, and yes, it is way more open than before, at the end of the day, it's no DMC Double May Cry or no DMC 5, where it's incredibly easy to get into the air. Like, for example, Nero in 5, you can always just grab the enemy. Or with Dante, you know, you can always throw the rose at the enemy and that'll throw them up. But with DMC 3, the thing is that once you get here, that's kind of it. This is how high Dante will ever go, pretty much. With the enemy. The problem is that there's no weapon, and I mean no weapon in Dante's kit to shoot the enemy up. So that means that 90% of the time, like I said, you're going to be around here. And you're going to have to stick with that. So it's not nearly as open and free as DMC 5 or DMC Devil May Cry, which is a real shame, because I wish that they use a certain weapon that maybe lets you, I don't know, that lets you do something with the enemy that keeps them up more or throws them up, but it is what it is at that point. There's still a lot more than before, that's for sure. So the next thing is to mention, this will only really happen in your first few playthroughs, and that is the leveling up system. So obviously if you play the original, you just select it and then you get more experience and therefore it levels up naturally. In this game, for whatever reason, they decided to throw that out almost entirely and do something weird with it. And that being is that since you switch on the fly, whatever you end a battle on with that certain style, then it gets that experience. Meaning, if I have Trickster right now and I use that for 90% of the boss, but at the very end I switch to Swordmaster, pretty much all the experience goes to Swordmaster. So, leveling up system still sucks. I wish that they just either let them level up all at the same time or they didn't in like the original, but it is what it is. Anyway, if you do want to level up, I highly suggest doing the boss fights. Any of the boss fights in this game will highly level you up really fast. Or for just the way I did it, just go through easy mode. That way you can build leveling up easier. Still stupid. Hated it in DMC 3. Not much better in Freestyle, but that is what it is. Alright, so the last thing to mention in this lightning round is that difficulty is still there in this game. You will still get your butt kicked quite often. And after all the things it does break, DMC 3 knows that, yeah, we can still absolutely challenge you, and you ain't gonna do nothing about it. Like, literally, buddy, just put the fries in the bag. You know what I mean? And I know that's kind of a weird way of saying, but challenge in this game, still there. I mean, like I said, there is stuff that completely, it breaks the game, but in other ways, it's still a challenging game. Like you will still find that hard and very hard and DMD are still difficult. But it's only now with Freestyle, it's only how good you get at the game in which how you improve. And I think you improve way faster with this system versus in the original system because your options were so limited. Conclusion. Alright, so let's finish this off. While Freestyle is amazing and way better than the original, it doesn't fix everything. Enemies are still a problem. The level design sucks. Some of these bosses aren't great. And I'd say, I know people say that it actually, like, this is the best bosses in the series. I highly disagree. I think the bosses are completely all over the place in this game. And for me, at least, they're mostly negative. So yeah, I mean, if you do want to pick it up, make sure you go over everything that I mentioned before and you're cool with that. And then you just, you know, pick it up if you want to. This is kind of like what I want. What I'm trying to tell you, what I want from the game, and maybe in turn you'd be interested as well. But yeah, that's how Freestyle feels. So again, answering this video's question, is it good? Yes, with an asterisk, but it could be better. And Probably there's gonna now be a bunch of people in this comment section that say something about a DMC3 remake or whatever, which I'd only want a remake if they change like it's more than half of the game. But yeah, with all that out of the way, I do have 2 planned videos. One's gonna be about how I strongly dislike DMC3 Virgil, and the other one is going to be about the lost styles of DMC, which is Quicksilver, Doppelganger, and Darkslayer from DMC4, and we're just going to kind of go over and see where they should be, where they're at now, blah blah blah. Anyway, if this has been any good, like I said, go over to the main channel, sub there. Subbing here is nice too. Just leave a comment saying, mommy sucky my titties. So yeah, I hope that this was helpful in some way. I am tired after a long day of work, and I want to go to 9-9, and I will eventually, hopefully. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this, cool, and hopefully this was helpful to you. Anyway, that's it. See ya.